Thank you. Um, Probably 6 o'clock, 6:45 now, 6:50. It might not be a great time to talk about a very controversial topic in the startup ecosystem, but a much needed one as you grow, many of them realize. Hope you think a lot more about brand after this and during this conversation. Hopefully I can douse your need for the next brand of poison in the evening for some time. So hold on. I tried to gamify this session, put up a live poll session rather than just talk so that there is more interaction. I would like all of you to engage, pose questions even in between so that much of your myths I can try and talk about, or some things that you have as queries I can double down. I'm also available after this for a bit, so if any of you all have questions, please feel free to ask. So I'll request the MC to just talk about how to do this.
All right, so as you can all see, am I audible? Is my mic working? Hello, hello. Yeah, perfect. All right, so you can either scan this QR code over here, or you can log into menti.com and just put in this code 39604475. I repeat, 39604475. And once you've logged in, can you all give me a thumbs up from there so we know that you're in, and then we'll start with it. We see a few thumbs up already. See, that's what I love about the startup culture. They're so fast and agile. So when there's something about startups, the first thing that comes to mind is agility. And we see it right here, right? All right, are we ready?
Okay. Shall we start? Okay, so what do you think, according to you, each one of you, is the most important pillar to build a brand? Just select any one of the options.
All right, can we have more people logging in? As we do this, you can still log in. The code is 39604475. And the website is menti.com. It's right here at the bottom left of the screen.
Should we wait for more participation? Anybody having issues in doing this? Everybody is able to do it? Okay. Right. So this is a good segue into my topic, how purpose is very important to build a brand, right? I can see most of the people selected it, so I think the crowd knows a lot about brand building already. If I can add more, what exactly is the purpose? Anybody wants to add in? Right, to solve the problem. Anything else? So I've got some examples from the startup ecosystems. Of course, we talk a lot about international brands like Apple, Nike, etc. having great purpose. But let me pick out some startup brands right from our country. One of the poster boys, Lenskart, right? All of us know Lenskart. When they started with eyewear, but then they also started selling a lot of accessories on their website, right? There was a huge competition from a well-trusted brand, Titan Eyewear, Titan Eye Plus, right? But they still managed to really do this decade-old journey and be extremely successful and overtake all the competition and become really a big brand name, not only in India, but in a lot of other countries. How did they do that? Were they really only selling great eyewear at a great price? Not really, right? They had a very strong purpose, which was also the founder's very strong purpose. So if the founder is really passionate about something and it really trickles down to the entire organization timelessly, that's much evident when we see Piyush talking about Lenskart very passionately. So the whole purpose was about transforming the way people see and experience the world, right? It is not about eyewear. So while product is important, it is not the why of why you exist. I think as a startup founder, it is very important for you to understand why you're starting a business. Is it only funding tak? Is it seasonal? Do you want your business to last for many years? As a VC, do you want to invest in something that is just a 5x return and you get out? But even if you do get out, do you leave behind a legacy as a brand? So it's very important to really find a purpose. Some of the other brands, one of the brands, Heads Up for Tails. Have you all heard about it? Very different category into pets. There have been much larger FMCG brands, international brands, which cater to pet food, a couple of other categories. But why did Heads Up for Tails become so popular, so fast, in such a differentiated category? Because their purpose was about helping families raise their pets as kids and providing for their pets, right? So it's a very broad, encompassing reason for you to exist in your business. Something very interesting in the previous panel, the CEO of Masai mentioned, if you all were here, which really caught my attention to this topic, was about impact coming before profit, right? Today, everybody's chasing profits, definitely timely so. It is the so-called funding winter. But are you chasing profits by cutting down things that really matter for your existence? Or are you still sticking on to your purpose? So if you've started by making just quick money and doing all sorts of things for your business, surely profitability is going to be a challenge. But if you, as he mentioned, as Pratik mentioned, if you really stand for some impact or a purpose, your business will flourish, right? So product, a great product, whether it's tech, whether it's a physical product, great solution, is definitely important, because without that, you can't engage with your consumer. But it should be a byproduct of your purpose. And we'll get to media spends, which is, again, a very controversial discussion around brand building. But I'm glad the audience suggested this, so I think you guys are on the right path already. Great. Should we move on to the next question?
All right, so we have a few more questions for you on this. So do not log out of Menti. Keep the screen active. And as we go through the session, there'll be more questions coming up, and you can submit your responses accordingly.
I hope you all are enjoying doing this rather than me just standing here and giving some gyan. Okay, let's see more participation. Vipul, can we give extra drinks to the most participating one? Okay. Okay, I think we've got a response. So this was a trick question. And there is no right and wrong answer, but it's definitely a mindset that I do intend to kind of have a small impact on. So yes, in the balance sheet, unfortunately, marketing and brand building overall is an expense. But brand building is equal to marketing. I think we made it too transactional as a term. We've divided it into many parts. But actually, you do build your brand, right? By being here, you're building your brand. By networking, you're building your brand. Yes, you may have paid for the taxi or the transportation and your time. So in that sense, it's an expense. But it is really an investment. Again, it's the reason you exist as a business, right? It is the reason why a lot of things fall into place like clockwork. So my previous stint was at Duroflex as a CMO. Going back to the previous question, we were in the business of selling mattresses in a regional scenario. So we were a South Indian brand selling mattresses to the offline world, just pre-pandemic. And we realized the pandemic gave us time to really introspect and understand what we want to be. While we hadn't really spoken about it or granularized it, we were able to granularize our purpose to really help people sleep better and therefore be better human beings, right? People who are well rested, who are well slept are better. So that gave us a very strong purpose. And that's when we realized that talking about that is more impactful. And by the way, you know, the brand makes great mattresses. And that's how today the brand is a national name. It's a leading national name within a span of 2.5, 3 years during a very difficult time. Now, was all this done purely because we threw in a lot of money? Definitely not. The initial growth and the attraction towards the brand happened during the first wave of the pandemic where the topic and the purpose was so close to our heart that we put out a lot of content on how sleep builds immunity, how sleep helps you be relaxed. So we did a lot of sessions around that by influencers. And then we also gave away a lot of free mattresses to hospitals who were setting up COVID centers, to poor people who didn't sleep properly. So it all stitched together beautifully. Now, was this media spend? Really nothing, right? So when pandemic opened, we were set up for success. And that's when, of course, we had a lot of money because our sales projections were 2x, 3x in a 10% growth category. In a legacy business, we were able to grow like a startup and function like a startup. And that's when we put a lot of money behind it, got a brand ambassador, did all the big things, did media spends because we could afford it. But does the journey start then? What if we hadn't done 1.5, 2 years of real hard work, of explaining how sleep is important, of explaining how a good mattress is your foundation for sleep, right? If we straight away just got Alia Bhatt, who was a brand ambassador, and asked her to just sell, would it be as effective? No, right? So brand building can really give you much larger volumes of returns, can impact a lot more people, get in a lot more people to listen to you with the amount of money you spend, but that's not your starting point. Your starting point is when you start business. As a founder, you should know what your business stands for and therefore brand. I mean, brand is just the whole personification and identity creation of your business. It is about making your business stay for ages, decades, and making a legacy out of it, right? I'm sure all of us want to do that right here. I hope so. So yeah, a little bit of an example on how we were able to do it at Duroflex. Another interesting thing what happened at Duroflex was our debtors, the outstanding from our, our dealers, our distributors was very high before we started positioning ourselves as a sleep solution provider, before we started talking a lot of content, and then of course a larger marketing activities. Before we became a strong brand, it was around 60 days minimum. And the minute we became a strong brand, within the pandemic, it came down to about less than 30 days, just half on its own, because it built trust with the stakeholders. We got funded in the middle of pandemic by a very large VC firm, and it was a more tech-based firm, and it funded it in a legacy brand. Because there was confidence in the way we were doing things, it was very different from the other competition. And all this was happening because we were on a focused approach to build the brand. So brand building is not only what you put out to your end consumer to get the awareness, but it is really unifying the entire stakeholders, building trust, and building a system, ecosystem. It also helps you hire great talent, right? Is it easy to hire talent if nobody knows what you're doing and nobody understands it, right? So it's the articulation and the culture and the whole ecosystem that you create within the organization to also hire talent, which is critical even for a startup to scale. So please don't look at brand building as this major animal sitting out there waiting to eat up all your money. It is very much the reason why you should be doing business. So yeah, something which I don't agree over here as a poll. We'll move to the next question. Yeah, I think this is a big question that the entire startup community will be very interested in. Wow. Can we have more responses? There's a fight out there. Anybody willing to put in more response to? Okay. Okay. I can understand this. Okay. So this is definitely the mindset across. So this is a great interpretation of the world out there of founders, business owners, anybody who wants to put their money somewhere in building the brand. I think this whole thing of performance marketing standing on its own has become a big myth, that I want to burst. And I've handled performance marketing for over 10, 11 years now. I think the amount of time that it's kind of existed, I've managed teams. So it's not coming from a person who just talks about brand building conceptually, who's handled the entire marketing stack, which includes performance marketing. Let's go back to basics. again, if brand building is the entire marketing effort, what is performance marketing as part of that? Is it something else altogether? What are you doing by getting performance marketing? Let's go to the offline world and give a similar example in the offline space. If a store is getting, let's say, 100 footfalls, right? How many do you think the store owner should convert out of it, minimum? 100%, wow, that's great. But anybody who's had some offline experience? Right. A good brand, 60 to 70 is in how much conversion do you get out of your performance marketing? That's the number of people coming to your website or your platform, right? And it's supposed to be directly proportionate to your sales. 1% if you're really lucky and if you're doing amazing stuff and if I had the best talent paying them really well, right? So that's really what it is. Performance marketing is great tool to give you reach, to give you instant data on your fingertips, but I think the data is making everyone go blind and lose the real picture. So performance marketing is really just another media, the most recent media. Previously, so I was at Lifestyle about 12 to 15 years back, and that time, the newspapers and TV, of course, was like the biggest media mix, and there was huge talent pool over there available, people who are great in statistics, people who are great in crunching numbers, and it was really a great plan that took months of understanding and so-called analytics of those days that put out plan there, right? So it's not like everything happened blindly in those times. Of course, digital is amazing. We are in the era of generative AI now, which is again amazing to put out real-time content out there and do a lot more things. So I think marketing is also evolving. We should use all these as byproducts or as tools to help us reach our consumers, right? The whole blind side in the startup ecosystem happens when you think one part of marketing is the entire, and you overinvest in it. Of course, when you're starting off, you might not have a choice. But if you, again, have a strong purpose, at least your content going on in that performance marketing will be something that's connected with what you want to put out there. Make sure it is, because if your content isn't strong, even your performance marketing doesn't help, right? So it's just one pillar. Also, when you change your scale, so the mindset that you have when you're 0 to 1, should be very different from 1 to 10. All the experiments that you're able to do by reaching out to your audience through performance marketing, just spraying the money, all over and just seeing what works, that is not something that you should be able to afford to do in a mindset when you go 1 to 10. That's when you really start building the brand more strongly, more strategically, and use performance marketing as one of the vehicles. The other myth with performance marketing is, or the credit that performance marketing gets, is through its amazing last mile attribution, right? Everybody can see that the customer sold through there. What happens to the poor SEO guys and the organic guys who really brought the traffic and helped the consumers read about your product, and they never get the credit, right? Because the last mile attribution is not so easy. So I think we should stop splitting marketing and brand building into so many different verticals. It's always advisable to put your dollar together to really add up everything to finally see the ROI. And of course, there are many ways to do that. But that's where your mindset should be. If you can't do it today, at least start thinking about that direction so that tomorrow you know that the marketing team is not divided and they're not all fighting with each other. One is representing sales and the other one is just representing an expense line on the balance sheet, right? Okay. The next question. Which stage of consumer journey should be focused on the most? Pre-purchase, consideration and purchase, or post-purchase? Okay. Do all of them really believe in this, or they're just trying to type the right answer? This is not an exam. I'm really amazed that post-purchase has got so much response in this forum. Okay, is that it? Okay. So this was a trick question again. There is no right or wrong. It's, again, a very stage dependent. If you don't have any customers, what is the post-purchase you're going to focus on, right? And your efforts is going to be about building an MVP. It is about going to understand the test of the product, change your model, and a lot of things, right? So if you're really in a 0 to 1 stage, seeding the product freely as much, even if possible, doing a lot of things to make sure consumers give you feedback so that you have the product fit absolutely right. So pre-purchase and purchase become very critical. I think a lot of startup founders spend time, if it's B2B products especially, during the pre-purchase stage, right? Because you can't go horribly wrong once you've got a big customer on board paying you a lot of dollars. So you do have a lot of tests, a lot of things done, which is in pre-purchase. If you're a D2C brand, which is not so expensive, and again, if you're scaling 0 to 1, 0 to 5, during purchase becomes very important, and that's when even the role of performance marketing seems extremely important. But that's the time when you're getting more customers on board. So you think the results are really proving itself, and whatever you're doing is great, and you're able to sell a lot of products, but the customers might write the review much later, right? So you don't get a real-time understanding of what exactly happened. And that period could be days, it could be months, it could be years. Like for a mattress, for example, which a consumer gives a feedback, the data that we had was an average of minimum 30 days to 40 days. That's when they really experience the product and they get to know whether it's actually bad or good. So if you start thinking that you've done some amazing numbers within 30 days and you celebrate it, and you don't really reach out to the post-purchase stage, that's when the whole thing falls for a longer duration, right? So more expensive products, products which have a higher gestation of usage, the feedback might come in later. The complaints or the advocacy might come in much later. And therefore, investing in post-purchase becomes very critical. Even when you have reached scale for low-value items, today, consumers give testimonials and feedback online very easily. And all of us go online before purchasing something, right? I think even if it's a shampoo we are buying on Nykaa, we will see the rating. Anything below 3, we might not buy. So, of course, we can debate about whether those ratings are accurate or not. But today, consumers have data on their fingertips in the name of testimonials and reviews. And post-purchase, therefore, having a system to make sure post-purchase is monitored, incentivized, or grown is very important. Giving service to very large spends, like buying a car, buying a home, painting is very important. So it's extremely crucial that you focus on post-purchase to be able to build your new consumer. Also, if your existing consumer is able to refer, so I'm sure all of us have read about how brand loyalty is probably not existing anymore, right? With the amount of options that we have in today's world, brand loyalty is becoming something, which can't be chased anymore. But brand loyalty may have shifted to brand advocacy. And advocacy is through the consumer's post-purchase experience. So all the dollars that you're spending on acquiring new consumers, you can really set off if that one customer can talk great about you and really make the customer buy your product. So yeah, so post-purchase is extremely crucial, but so are the other two. And if you're in the business of selling, make sure that all 3 stages are right. And depending on the stage of the business, the focus needs to change, right? So yeah, these were my few questions that I thought were very relevant for this audience, and especially at this hour. But maybe I'll leave the room open for any more questions, anything else that you all want to discuss. Any questions? Yeah.
Yeah, hi. Sujesh Shetty here from InUnity, that is Innovation for Community. We all feel that, we feel good about the brand, knowing their purpose, all those things, but then most of the time nobody does anything for that, or the purchase doesn't happen so much. So even though we are saying that, brand is good, marketing is different, it is separate, but how to convert? As you said, it should be together. That one part is a new thing that is great enough. But how do you measure this brand? I also came across or stumbled across brand ladder. So could you share some insight on that and how we can say that these many brand or the journeys of the people towards loyalty or towards the brand is growing, but how to leverage it is the second thing. So some insights over that would be great.
Sure, sure. So I'll try to address it in a short way, in a detailed way. Maybe we can chat offline. That's a very loaded question, and it's all about brand building. But whatever business you're in, right? So sorry, if you can tell me what business you're in. Education. And who would your target audience be? Right. And how is it different from what others are doing? There's so many. Have you thought about that? So, exactly, right? So that's the question. So today, a lot of startups have found great success over the last decade, or especially post-pandemic, because the country was really ripe for even organizing a category, right? Again, if I go back to my previous brands, Duraflex, 60% unorganized. Lingerie, I was part of Amante, which is a leading lingerie brand, which was again 50+% unorganized at the time I was there. So many such categories really did not even have an organized business. So if you simplified the process in which they get, whatever product or solution you're giving, if you made it more efficient, there was great leverage and there was scale. And that still continues. So India is seriously an amazing landscape for exactly this reason. But the minute sectors like probably education, which got a lot of interest in startups and a lot of companies set up, so much has happened, I think. You may correct me, but there's so much competition out there. Differentiation is really becoming a problem, right? So till you're not able to crack the differentiation, how are you going to attract the talent? So that's point number one. That firstly, whether it is based, again, ask yourself, what is the reason why if you're a startup founder, otherwise as a team, that why was this business set up? There are so many out there doing similar things. What is the reason? What is the impact we are making? What is the difference we are making to students' lives? Or is it just a product which is giving better price efficiency? Maybe that. Be honest to yourselves. Really crack the reason where you exist, and then start communicating that. So even the ads that you put out, you should put out communication, which is the differentiation. Even if you're doing performance ads, if your copy and your content doesn't have that, that's when brand building marries performance also, right? And then you have to add up all your areas of spend to the final business plan, that whether your awareness has led into consideration, and there are various tools and agencies to help with that. Finally, the awareness, consideration, and the purchase. What is the journey that the consumer is taking? What is the stack-up communication according to that, and is it helping? And then, because education is a spend which is for their life transformation, post-purchase becomes very important, where you actually reach out to the student and understand, will they recommend, will they refer, has it made a difference? So while it sounds difficult, these are must-dos. Otherwise, you're just shooting to a big group, you're just spending more money. It's actually even a bigger waste in startup journey to do more and more performance ads without understanding this initial feedback. And and then move forward, take corrective actions and move forward. And actually being 0 to 1 is amazing, because you can do all your experiments, you can do everything possible, but learn from it as you move along. I hope I answered your question. Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.